No. A few minutes after his pronouncement, we immediately constituted a team to investigate all these generals that are who were named during the, I think this was during the 69th anniversary of the Philippine Air Force in Pampanga.
So sa announcement po niya, sa kanyang speech nyo nalaman yung
Okay, because we took it from him because it was a direct order actually to Napolcom to do its job.
So yung isang retired general would be be investigated by under what information?
The one general who is now an elected official, it's going to be the concern of the Department of the Interior and Local Government. Retired, he will be dealt with our regular courts and our yes, by the DOJ. Yes. So our concentration is only on the 3 respondents who are still in the active service.
Sir, sabi po ni Presidente Duterte na ini-expect niya na walang magiging saswela dun sa investigasyon, hindi magiging palabas. At the same time, gaano kabilis yung magiging resulta ng investigasyon ng Napolcom?
The President is very clear on this matter. Kaya ayaw niya na the investigation will drag on because normally an investigation that drags on till eternity is always subject to suspicion that things are being fixed. So in our case, we will never go into that situation where the investigation becomes a subject of public scrutiny, So we are assuring now the public that the investigation to be conducted by the Napolcom is going to be a straight-ahead investigation. In fact, the directive given to the investigation team is they should complete the investigation within 7 days. And then after that, we will go into the actual summary dismissal proceedings. That's why we are estimating by way of a timeline that we could complete the entire process within a month's time. We will come up with a very clear pronouncement by way of coming up with a in-bank resolution to be signed by all commissioners, including the Secretary of the Local Government, who is the chairman actually of the N-Bank Commission. Any more? The commissioners, other commissioners can answer your questions also.
Ipapatawag ba, papupuntahin ba rito yung mga general dito mismo sa Napolcom o yung team na mismo pupunta doon?
Well, there are steps that are to be taken. We are now in the validation stage. So the team that we already constituted will have to validate this. Insofar as their attendance is concerned, under our rules, we can even decide based on position papers. So we do not have to call them for an actual confrontation actually, but their answer, which are verified answers, can serve already as basis for any decision that we may come up with.
Sir, sa mga patients nakaka-retire lang, pinaprocess pa yung kanilang benefits, ma-hold pa ito because of this investigation or tuloy lang hanggang hindi pa sila natutulog or nakakasama?
Well, it's a normal procedure that if you are already on your way of retirement and there are cases that are still there pending with you, you cannot receive the full benefits because this is going to be delayed until you are cleared of any administrative case that you may have been facing before your retirement. This has happened already in so many instances because a clearance from the Napolcom is necessary in order to get your benefits from the Philippine National Police. So if you're not cleared of your administrative cases, you cannot get but you're free to retire. Only that the benefits will be held in abeyance until you're cleared.
Sir, pwede bang magsuspindi ang Napolcom dun sa mga general na nasasangkot sa katiwalian ngayon?
Suspension is already a penalty. The most immediate thing that the PNP can do is to relieve them of their present duties, which is actually what the President did. Ito pong tatlong nasa active service na pinangalanan niya, they have been relieved already of their duties. Suspension is another thing because suspension is already a penalty by itself. So it must be clear to everyone that suspension is different from being relieved of the duty. So they have been relieved, but they have not been suspended yet until and after the proper proceedings are undertaken that will warrant their suspension or removal from the service, as the case may be.
So yung investigation dun sa ganung kataming generals, is this the first for Napolcom na sabay-sabay? What are your thoughts about this the commission? Ano po yung tumatakbo sa isip nyo ngayon?
Well, it's really a very surprising event now. Imagine, for the longest time, ito na ipalabas na the highest officials in the PNP have been named by the President. So for Napolcom, this is really this is quite an experience. Because it's a challenge actually on how to go about doing your mandate on 5 PNP officials who are actually, they're practically at the top of the apex of the PNP. So this is a big challenge, and we can assure that even with this kind of a situation, the full force of the law in our mandate as a disciplinary body will be applied without, of course, sacrificing due process. Because even in the pronouncement of the President, oftentimes is misunderstood. We would like to reiterate that this office, this commission, will always observe the tenets of due process in the discharge of its duties. Ini-emphasize dito ng Presidente na hindi naman natin dapat kalimutan ng due process, ay dapat nasa harap natin when conducting investigations like this.
Sir, makikipag-coordinate din po ba kayo sa Office of the President, kasi particular siya mismo nagsabi ng info o ng mga pangalan nitong mga to, baka siya may hawak ng ebidensya or intelligence information para makuha nyo rin po.
That would be a necessity actually. In fact, under our procedure, when you investigate personalities who are presidential appointees, you have to get clearance from Malacanang to allow you and enable you to investigate these officials. But in this case, we would presume that the clearance would be moot and academic because it was no less than the President who directed us to conduct the investigation. And whatever documents are there that will require his clearance will be submitted to Malacanang for on a status report basis. So we will be submitting to Malacanang the progress report regarding this matter.
What do you call this committee that you created? Special committee, or is there a certain name for this?
Well, it's a regular team composed of lawyers. In fact, the letter order that we issued convening this team labeled it as a investigating legal team. That's how they are labeled now. They are known under our letter orders. Anything more, please?
So particularly, what is the what are the detailed tasks of this investigative committee? Particularly, sir, ano ba yung talagang kailangan nilang ma-establish within the investigation?
Okay, there are 5 who were named. Tatlo lang po ang concern ng Napolcom because these respondents are still in the active service. The specific thing that we would like to establish through this committee is to validate, because there are already pieces of evidence that prompted the President to come up with that decision to name them in public. The task of the Napolcom now is validating these pieces of evidence now for purposes of establishing probable cause. So principally, the evidence is already there to be consistent with the tenets of due process. These things must be validated. Kasi that's part of due process already. And then, in addition to that, we will require them to submit their reply or answer to the formal charge that will be submitted, of course, to the ad hoc committee. So it's a validating venture actually for this legal team.
Do you have already an idea, sir, what this pieces of evidence were?
That would be very premature as of now because we have to wait for the report of this team that will actually they will be starting their function this day, and they are just given 7 days from today to complete the task.
So sir, hindi niyo pa nakikita kung ano yung mga ebidensya?
We know already that these are pieces of evidence coming from the intelligence community, but we are not at liberty to name them until these are validated by our team.
So, sir, that legal team will coordinate with the Office of the President to obtain such piece of evidence to prove the guilt of those three generals?
Yes, principally this is a situation where each and every agency has to coordinate with each other. It might not be necessarily the Office of the President, but it will come from offices under the Office of the President.
Sir, mostly ba yung evidence are just witnesses, statements, or meron din yung documentation?
Well, when you speak of evidence, under our present dispensation, evidence will come in so many forms. No? If you probably have heard of optic evidence, documentary evidence, testimonial evidence. This is going to be a conglomeration, a combination of all sorts of evidence, both testimonial, both and even optic evidence.
Circumstantial.
Even circumstantial evidence. So this will not be limited to a certain type of evidence, but it's going to be a combination of various forms of evidence.
Pero in this particular case, yung nabanggit ko niyo na you cannot divulge without diving into details, ano na po yun, yung nakita niyo? Is it these documents or confession?
As at this early, all that Napolcom will rely on as of today will be intelligence reports. And you know, when you speak of intelligence reports, this passes through different stages. May form of validation muna ito. Hindi at the mere say-so of somebody, paniniwalaan mo kaagad. Our intelligence community is very competent on this. You don't just accept a certain piece of evidence, information, hook, line, and sinker. This passes through a lot of stages. I think Commissioner Serapio here is well versed on the classification, how pieces of information of processed. Commissioner Serapio, can you help us on this, on the validation of?
Mahaba po, Jesse, yung validation.
Yeah.
There are different validation po. Merong letter dyan na A up to D. Kaya meron tinatawag na confirmed by other sources. We validate the source, we validate the information in other words. So meron ganun ang intelligence. So the validation of the source will be also being may levels na there is the validation of the information presented. So ganun po nagbabalidate.
Sir, do you believe that the evidence that the President has or the intel reports that we have are convincing enough na to make it public right away without even the Napolcom validating it first?
It's a presidential statement. And the president of all citizens in this country has the widest source of information. He has, yes, also being a former a prosecutor and being a lawyer himself, he knows the parameters of the value of evidence. And to sum it up, being the highest official of the land, he has the widest access to information. So the presumption that his statements are supported by the best of evidence is there. And as the agency tasked with dealing with the PNP, we have to do our share by going into the depths of the matter so that the proposition that high officials in the PNP are involved in this will finally find the answer. I think this is a very intriguing question among our citizens. Kung mabibigyan sila ng klarong kasagutan through a formal report and a decision coming from the Napolcom.
After 7 weeks pa, sir, magpipilitin ba kayo update sa public or sa media on the progress ng investigation?
Siguro, maiksing panahon lang naman ang aabutin itong prosesong ito. Mas maigi siguro na hayaan natin makapagtrabaho muna ang Napolcom and then expect that in due time, may klaro na kayong desisyon. Hindi na tayo mag-uusap tungkol kung anong progreso, pag-uusapan natin kung anong resulta na talaga ng investigasyon. So to avoid speculation, hayaan muna natin itong legal team ng Napolcom magtrabaho. And then, in due time, you will know that the investigation has been concluded and that an official decision has been passed already by the Commission and Bank. Of course, kung nasa sa inyo naman yun actually kung ano ang gusto nyo pang malaman so far, but insofar as the Napolcom is concerned, the next time probably na mag-usap-usap tayo tungkol sa nito, may decision na talaga ang Napolcom.
So, result na.
May resulta na talaga.
Pero yung mga officers na pangalanan, never pong nagkaroon ng kahit anong kaso, na-involve sa kung ano, kahit hindi drug-related. Yeah.
Sa records nila.
Remote yung ano natin na.
Which one?
Yung tatlo.
Kung may mga record?
Kaya hindi sir, kung may record ba sa Napolcom na report?
We are not aware of any case involving these 5 respondents insofar as Napolcom is concerned. Kasi pina-check namin kaagad if there were previous cases. So far wala naman. Wala naman. So ito talaga ang first time na nilabas ang involvement nila. And ngayon lang magkakaroon kami ng records sa Napolcom involving them. Well, previous to that, wala naman kami nakita pang pending case nila.
Pero makakahingi din ba kami ng data doon sa mga dismiss na on drug charges ng mga police officers? Meron ba tayo?
Yung mga nakaraan na, give us a little time because we are now about to complete the dismissal proceeding against PO1 Alyangan, if you remember. We are almost done with it. Mabibigyan kami namin kayo ng information based on our decision already. The Alyangan case, which is a very very popular case, very controversial. Imagine PO1 having PO2, I mean, having in his vault 7 million, and then no. Hindi pa.
Criminal case? I think it's
Not
still
yet.
without DOJ.
Tapos siya sa inyo.
What we're having is the administrative stage.
Administrative. We are almost done
In a
with
few
it.
days.
In a few days, we will come out with an order of decision on that. So that's one, the Alyangan case. The other one is we're still waiting for the completion of the investigation.
In Mati, that's after Davao.
Yes,
So you have
Davao.
after Davao, the Mati, and
Right. And then we have the Region 3 case in Bulacan, where NCRPO policemen are involved. You will get an update on this because these are drug-related cases. And we are working on these cases very, very seriously and very closely.
At kahit administration dun, ano po yung impact nun sa criminal case kung meron?
Well, in a criminal case, what is required is evidence be conviction beyond reasonable doubt. No? So it requires a greater quantum of evidence. On the administrative side, mere substantial evidence is enough to come up with a decision. So kung you are administratively liable, it can probably inspire the prosecution to get a conviction in the criminal case. But that it does not necessarily mean that if you are administratively liable, you are also criminally liable. It inspires probably the prosecution to get a conviction based on the evidence utilized in the administrative proceedings.
Likewise, if you are criminally not liable, it's not a bar in filing an administrative case.
That's right.
Kahit naman dismiss yung criminal case, the administrative case could proceed independently.
Kasi you're working on the same evidence.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Maraming salamat for your time.
Pag-press ko naman after 7 days.
Thank you.
Kasi hindi pa interest niya. After the impact.
After the impact.
Kasi very definitive ng decision yan. After the impact. Yeah, we expect this to be completed in a month's time. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Is very clear on this matter. Kaya ayaw niya na the investigation will drag on because normally an investigation that drags on till eternity is always subject to suspicion that things are being fixed. So in our case, we will never go into that situation where the investigation becomes a subject of public scrutiny. No? So we are assuring now the public that the investigation to be conducted by the Napolcom is going to be straight ahead investigation. In fact, the directive given to the investigation team is they should complete the investigation within 7 days. And then after that, we will go into the actual summary dismissal proceedings. That's why we are estimating by way of a timeline that we could complete the entire process within a month's time. We will come up with a very clear pronouncement by way of coming up with a no, a few minutes after his pronouncement, we immediately constituted a team to investigate all these generals that are who were named during the. Okay, I think it was during the 69th anniversary of the Philippine Air Force in Pampanga.
So sa announcement po niya, sa kanyang speech nyo nalaman yung
Okay, because we took it from him because it was a direct order actually to Napolcom to do its job.
So yung isang retired general would be be investigated by under what agency?
The one general who is now an elected official, it's going to be the concern of the Department of the Interior and Local Government.
Yung isa sa retired lang. Yeah.
Retired, he will be dealt with our regular courts and our yes, by the DOJ. Yes. So our concentration is only on the 3 respondents who are still in the active service.
Sir, sabi po ni Presidente Duterte na ini-expect niya na walang magiging saswela dun sa investigasyon, hindi magiging palabas. At the same time, gaano kabilis yung magiging resulta ng investigasyon ng Napolcom?
The President